wanted to remind all of you that next Saturday or next Sunday that we won't have class, and that's primarily because of the way Teen Challenge is going to be here. Yeah. Praise the Lord. They actually are coming back, and they're going to be, I kind of have mixed information. I was talking to Annette about it, kind of mixed information. I know they're going to be in at least one of the services. I don't know if it's going to be the first service or the second service or both services. What's that?
I don't know, but they mentioned it from the pulpit, from the church today. He mentioned it in the church this morning, that they're going to be at the Strawberry Festival.
Okay, but that's usually, was that usually after the service or in between services? Between? Okay. So I know they're going to be at the Strawberry Festival because they're actually going to be presented some funding from the proceeds that come from that. So, you know, we want to encourage them, we want to be there, and I don't want the class, you know, to be going on in here and with that all going on too, because I want to be there for the girls. Well, that's my understanding, but again, I don't know if they're going to do everything in the sanctuary during one of the services, so that's where all the conflict comes. And no sense of trying, you know, adding to it. I'd rather try to help participate in it and encourage the girls. So there won't be any class on that day. And you know, sometimes people ask me, well, especially my wife, she'll ask me, why do you go to church so early? Why do you leave the house between 7 and 7:30 in the morning? Well, this morning when I got up, usually I get up around 4 or 5 to start the recipe. Depends on what it is, but some recipes take that much time. And this morning when I grabbed the recipe, I looked at it, and it was a Babylonian spicy drink. And so, you know, I kind of glanced at it when I first took it because I saw a variety of different fruits and juices and such in it. But I failed to look at one major ingredient, and one of the larger ingredients, which was rum. So I decided not to make that. I'm the Bible chef, not the Bible bartender. So anyways, what I did grab for you was a Babylonian stew. And the interesting thing about that stew is it's a very simple one to make. It's another simple one to make. But to continue on with the story, why I get here so early, since I had to switch gears on the drink, I had to make a stew. Sometimes stews take a little while to cook. And so you got to have time on your side when you're making a stew. And you have to have the right ingredients. So I had to rush over to Albertsons to make sure I could find everything, because I had to make sure I could get stew meat. You know, some stew meat is a simple thing, but if they don't have it cut, then you've got to find the right cuts of meat, like round steak or something like that, so you can cut it into stew meat. Well, fortunately, they had both, so I grabbed that okay. And then they've got to have this recipe called for leeks. Got to have leeks. I mean, you can substitute other onions, but they're putting the leeks in there for flavor. Now, not all stores carry leeks either. But Martha Stewart has made them very popular, and so I've noticed that more and more stores are carrying them. Probably people are trying to do her recipes, and they're asking for them, and the stores are carrying them. So fortunately, Albertsons had everything that we needed to make the stew. So I rush over here to the church now, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got time on my side still. The recipe only calls for this to cook and simmer for an hour, a little over an hour, and we can do that. And everything else I've got with me. And so while the stew is in there simmering, I rush in here and hook up the computer, and the computer doesn't work. Boom. So I said, okay, Nacho, I know the church has got a spare computer. Can you get the spare computer out? He gets the spare computer out. That one doesn't work either. So I knew the church had two laptop computers. Unfortunately, who had the other laptop? Who took it home? Yeah. Fortunately, he had brought it back. So we had the second. So not only was it plan A, B, we had to get down to C. We're down to C, and plan C, we got this one to work. Unfortunately, it didn't have the software in it to run the this is Open Office. I forget what it's called. Presentation, Open Office presentation. And of course it didn't have the software in it. So I had to run home and go get my copy of the software and come back and load it into this computer. So I think everything started running at about 10:15, didn't it? Just when Annette walked in. So when someone says, Steve, why do you get to church so early? Well, there you have it. There's a breakdown for you. But we got it. Okay, with the...
So, what else have you been doing?
Yeah, trying to catch my breath. Okay. The stew today, like I said, is a Babylonian stew. It's a very simple stew to make. Basically, stew meat, or you can use lamb, about 2 pounds. Now this makes about 4 to 6 servings, and since I was trying to figure out how many people we're going to have today, I went ahead and just used the 4 to 6 servings. And because I try not to make it so it's like that you're getting a whole meal. Like I said, I just want you basically to have a taste of it. It's a very simple one to make. You're going to take about 2 pounds of the stew meat, and you chop it up into about 1-inch pieces. And unfortunately, I don't have pictures for you because this does not have an interface for the camera flash card. So can't cover all the bases. But anyways, I just explain it. So you take the stew meat, your 2 pounds of stew meat, you're going to rinse it off and dry it and set it aside. Now you've got a medium-sized leek. Everybody knows what a leek looks like? Big green onion, big old green onion. I was asking one of the ladies in there that was preparing the drinks if she'd ever had a leek. Have you ever had a leek? And no, I've heard of them, but I don't know. They're just big old onions. They're a little bit sweeter, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the size or if that's just they're just predisposed to that. But they are very popular with cooks on television. And then I chop what I do is I always cut it just like you do a green onion up to where you start getting the leafy parts. You know, so I usually use about that much of it. Now what you can do is you can pull the leaves off afterwards and clean them up, and then you can slice them make real thin slices. And then of course you got the white and the green, and it makes a nice garnish across the top of it. You know, and it's edible. Okay, so you've got the leek cut up, and I took a whole medium-sized onion. It was a golden onion, and chopped that up, and then about 3 cloves of garlic. Chop that up. The recipe called for 4 cups of water, but when you're boiling something like that, you're going to lose some of that. So I thought, you know, I should put at least 2 more cups in. So I put 6 cups of water in for this. And I think it was good because 6 cups was just enough to cover the meat and everything, and you wanted to get all the heat evenly through the food. So you put the meat in the pan and cover it with 6 cups of water. Then I put the leeks, the onions, and the garlic on it, and put it on a low heat, just enough to get the water to start to boil, and then constantly stirred it. Now, as I tasted it, as it was cooking, it tasted good just like it was, but it needed a little bit of spice. I mean, something else, you know, because you just got onion and garlic pretty much in there as your flavor. Now, meat does give it a little bit of flavor, but it's just pretty much onion and garlic during the taste. So I did add some salt and pepper to it. And so that was pretty much the only thing outside of the recipe. Now, the recipe can be used kind of like a foundational recipe, because basically you've just got a stew sitting there anything you could put in it. I mean, any vegetable you could add to it, from squashes to onions and carrots and anything else that you wanted to put into it. So I kind of imagine that it was one of those kinds of stews where, you know, they said, okay, the boys are coming home, I got to put something together. what do I got? Well, you got your foundational stew and whatever else is over here, you know. I mean, even if it was just to cook bread or something else, you know, you could still go that direction.
Do you think that the leeks that they have today are very similar to the ones that I talked about when the children of Israel, they missed the leeks in Egypt?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question that comes up a lot, because especially when I start writing about the older stuff. In fact, I comment about that when I'm writing about the food from the book of Genesis, because not only do I have that issue, but I also have the stuff about, well, the food was perfect before the fall. You know, so I got that issue. So I had to contend with that issue. And of course, I tell people, that's true. We don't know what the food would be like before the fall. The only thing we would know is after the fall. Okay, so once you have that established, then I can say we can look back in history and see how foods have changed, and if they have changed. And there are a variety of archaeologists who have found vessels, clay vessels that have remnants of food in it. And I think I might have mentioned this about the beer recipes that were found in the tombs. Well, they actually were able to take out some of the vessels that were in the tombs, and sure enough, there was still some beer residue in there, and there was still some grains in there, so you could find the hops and the barley, and sure enough, it's very similar to what we have today. So using that, I use that kind of information to extrapolate and say there probably wasn't too much change between the foods in general that they have now, that they had then. If it's taken from the same geographical location under the same conditions. Now, you know, modern stuff is there's hybrids and there's genetically altered stuff. Of course, that will change things. But if you look back at the older foods, and you can pretty much say if it came from that region and there's no other variables in there, like somebody did some kind of genetic changing to it or hybrids or anything like that, then there's a good chance that it's the same. Okay, so I've got Stu back here, and Annette has volunteered to help me. Right, Annette?
So quick, wasn't
She's a good and faithful servant.
She is. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in there too.
Ooh.
Yes. Well, you know, really, it called for shortening, and I try to stay away from shortening. I know, you know, it's basically, they had it back then because it's pretty easy to make. It's just animal lard.
Yeah, vegetable oil back there too.
But they had vegetable oil then too, olive oils, all that would fit right into that category. Yeah, all that stuff would fit into that category. You don't want to waste the foods when you have them. If you can extract oils or fats out of them for cooking, and all that stuff is calories. And back then, you know, nowadays we always dodge calories. Back then, they're trying to get them. That's one reason why they drink beer, because it's an easy way to get. Basically, beer is liquid bread. Another way of thinking of it. Now, you know, we think of it more of as an alcoholic beverage, but you can flip that around since you have the hops and the barley and all that in it. Basically, you've got a liquid carbohydrate that you're drinking. Well, I mean, kind of, sort of, but yeah, I don't know if it really. I don't know if you could really get away with that one, but I know you could. I know it's definitely got the calories. It's definitely got the calories in it. And they weren't looking at they didn't have to worry about so much the bacteria and different germs, viruses and things that would get into like the water supply. You don't have that as much with beer because of the alcohol in it. That helps take care of that problem. So that's something